Hi, my name is Jeff Bloomberg and I'm the Chief Operating Officer at MGE. And this week's tip is part three and the final part of my series on how to respond to negative reviews. Now, if you missed parts 1 and 2, you can catch them by clicking here. And as I've mentioned in prior videos, this information is just an excerpt of what we cover in MGE's Internet Marketing Seminar. At the Internet Marketing Seminar, we cover how to respond to reviews, obviously, how to get more good reviews, how to advertise on Facebook, Google, how to optimize your website, things of this nature, how to really make your internet marketing get the best bang for your buck. So we left off last week with, I had these 8 points that I'm covering, the 8 points of responding to a review. We went through point 4, so I figured this week I'd recap where we're at. So we've covered thus far in our first video, we covered points 1 through 3, which was point 1 was don't take a negative review personally. Point 2 was always take the high road when responding, and obviously you can watch the video to get all the info on this. Point 3 was use the review when applicable as a learning experience. And then in my next video, part 2, I covered point 4, which was always be HIPAA compliant in your response. Now, I know that, discussing the subject of HIPAA is not exactly something that's super scintillating. It's not something you'd want to do on a Saturday night. You know, if I told you, yeah, this is a HIPAA video, you're not going to go, wow, Jeff knows how to party. But it is information that you need to look at and know and learn and especially apply when you're responding to a negative review. And what I had found, I mentioned this in last week's video, was a lot of responses that I've seen, especially to negative reviews from dentists' offices, are not HIPAA compliant. As a matter of fact, sometimes they go overboard in their non-compliance. So with that said, we're going to now pick up with rules 5 through 8 in this video. And before I get into rules 5 through 8, I want to mention again, I've said this in the previous videos, I am not a lawyer, even though I am dressed as a hipster professor. I'm also not a hipster professor. I'm not an attorney, so if you feel like you need legal advice when you're looking at your response, I would definitely advise that you get it to make sure that you're, especially with HIPAA compliance type issues. Now, into Rule 5, let's just roll right into Rule 5. Rule 5 is use your response as a teaching opportunity. We established last week that you don't even want to acknowledge when a person leaves a review that they're actually a patient in your office for privacy reasons. So how could you respond? So I took a look at this, and my first thought was, as with anything, let's look online and find a decent response. I've been showing you reviews and responses throughout these series to give you a bit of an example. Well, here's what was interesting. I spent several hours myself looking at negative dentist reviews and the responses, the ones that were responded to. I had my assistant do the same thing, spend hours looking for a response to a negative review, and we could not find one that was actually HIPAA compliant 100% or that would serve as a good example of what I want to teach you here. So we're going to just have to go with what I'm saying here as far as what you're going to do. So let's establish the ground rules. We've already talked about we can't even acknowledge they're a patient. So, but what could you do? Well, first thing you could do is thank the person for their feedback, all right? And you should always do that, good or bad. Thank them for their feedback. They took time to acknowledge or say something about your office, good or bad, and you want to acknowledge that they did that, all right? It also is part of taking the high road. We can then, if there's a way you feel comfortable expressing yourself, you could acknowledge that they had a bad experience, not maybe at your office, but maybe acknowledge the fact they had a bad experience. You know, I'm sorry that you had a bad experience. You don't necessarily say at my office or as my patient. We then take the general nature of the negative review and we can use this as a teaching opportunity. So let's say the negative review is something about treatment planning. You know, they came in and they were expecting a cleaning and they were told they need to pay $2,000 for dental work. And obviously they didn't understand what they needed or why they needed it, or they would not have left that review. Or they had to wait too long, or the receptionist was rude. Well, what I would do in a case like this, without talking to their particular situation, is I would give a general overview of how the office handles things like this. So, thank you so much for your feedback. I'm sorry that you did not have a great experience. Now, in our office, our approach to treatment planning with every patient is blah, blah, blah. Or our approach to treatment planning when we see a new patient is blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying when I saw you, or here's what the deal is with your case, and you lay out what it is. We see new patients, we do a full mouth series of x-rays when needed, we do complete charting, period charting, and exam because we want to establish what it's going to take to restore proper aesthetic, function, etc., whatever your office philosophy is. If you can do that, then you're not necessarily talking to that person's exact situation, but you're letting because again, remember, these responses are not just for that person, They're for other people who look later. We're explaining to other people, you know, what our philosophy is in this office in a very polite and nice way. So that's how I would address it with point 5. Turn it into a teaching opportunity. And you could specifically point that teaching opportunity to whatever the issue was that was raised in the negative review. Which brings us to point 6, which is once you've responded, you want to steer this person offline to discuss it with you, because that's when you can really get into sorting things out. So this is point 6, steer it offline. Now, you could end off, when you get to the end, you could thank them again for their feedback and invite them to contact the office if they would like to discuss this issue or discuss their review further or the issues they brought up in their review further. And I would put who you want them to contact, including, you know, degree of transparency. You can put the phone number, but I would put the email address of whoever it is you want them to talk to, whether it's the doctor or the office manager. You know, I've sometimes wondered about this, having my email address made public. It's jeffb@mgeonline.com. I don't care. If you want to email me, it's fine. You know, and if someone wants to become trolly or spammy, there's such a thing as blocking an email. All right? I want to be transparent. I want the person to contact me. Which brings me to another point. You know, I've gone over this before. There are, you know, people who have valid upsets that express them in an online review, and then there's the invasion of the internet trolls who will just leave trolley reviews for absolutely no reason. So this brings up the question of, let's say you've responded, and then rather than contacting you, the person then responds again. Well, what do? Well, you can respond again, keeping in mind the various rules we've gone over, but should you respond more than twice, I would say no. And there's a great book. I may have talked about this in prior videos. If I haven't, I want to talk about it now. It's called Hug Your Haters. I love the book. It's by Jay Baer. I've got a picture of it up here on the screen. You can find it on Amazon as an audiobook or a book that you can read on your Kindle or iPod. Now, obviously, Mr. Baer doesn't get into HIPAA considerations. That's not a point to the book. But it does cover some really nice customer service points, as well as specifically responding to negative reviews. And it at least gives you the proper mindset when you're doing it. But he brings up in there, don't ever respond more than twice. You know, at that point, just leave it. Because the average sensible person seeing this will go, oh, this person's just a troll, if they're continuing to come after you. All right, so that's point 6. Point 7, assuming the person has responded to you. So let's say the person contacts you now. Now what do? You do everything within your power to make this right, okay? You don't go overboard or weird or give all kinds of crazy stuff away for free. Because again, if you're having to do that to make it right for somebody, unless what you've done in the office was some egregious customer service problem, then maybe this just isn't the type of patient you want frequenting your office. But within reason, you do everything you can to make it right for this patient and to make them feel comfortable. Now, why do you do that? Number one, because it's the right thing to do. I would do it for a person here. I would expect anybody to do that for their business, all right? Number 2, reviews can be amended. So a person might have left you 1 star, then guess what happens? That gets switched to a 5-star with an update. You see it all the time. And that's how you do it, by proper customer service. Which brings us to point 8, which is if you have any questions about it, if you feel, you know, in your gut or you just feel strange about should I respond to this, should I not, contact the appropriate professional. It might be an attorney, it might be a HIPAA type specialist, but always get professional advice if needed. It doesn't cost as much as you think in the long run. You know, it might cost you $100 to talk to a lawyer who says, you know, don't respond to that or don't say that. But the amount of money it'll cost you in the long run if you do violate HIPAA or create problems for yourself is just not worth it. So spend a few minutes and get somebody to look at it. So those are the 8 points. I know this was long, and if you've been through this whole thing, I appreciate it so much. I hope it helped. Now, if you like this type of information and you want to know more about internet marketing, I do recommend that you check out MGE's Internet Marketing Seminar. I have a link to it below. You can find out more information. And if you like this tip and you'd like to see other tips like it, go ahead and click the subscribe button. I used to point up here. It's now down below. Subscribe to our channel and you'll get informed as these tips come out. And if you have more questions about MGE or any questions about MGE for that matter, you can find us online at mgeonline.com or call us at 800-640-1140. Thank you very, very much, and we'll see you at the next tip.